Now let's explore William Shakespeare, the sonnet. But before I attempt to do that, allow me a few digressions. I mean it, a few digressions. Because to dive deep directly into the bard won't be sufficient enough without knowing the evolution of the sonnet as a poetic form. As you all are aware of, sonnets emerged as a poetic form way back in Italy. Petrarch, who is regarded as the father of humanism, is also known as the father of sonnets. It came to England through Thomas Wyatt and Surrey, the Earl of Surrey, who is also known as Henry Howard, through the Tortoise Miscellany. Later, Philip Sidney's Astrophel and Stella followed. In 1591, it was published posthumously as well by Thomas Newman. In 1595, Edward Spenser's Amorety was published by Ponsonby, William Ponsonby, Ponsby. If you look at the structure of the sonnet, Petrarch had experimented with the 8/6 stanza forms, popularly known as octave and sestet. This form was retained by Wyatt and Surrey, and also by Sir Philip Sidney. Philip Sidney, while writing Astrophel and Stella, continued this octave sestet format, and within the sonnet sequence, he tried 5 Petrarchian varieties. Again, speaking about the uniqueness of the sonnet form that came to England, we must mention that the Petrarchian form was not experimented much with until it reached Shakespeare. This is a popular misconception because we believe that it's Shakespeare who invented or tried to flaunt with the 8/6 format, which is not true. But before discussing who took the decisive step to play with this 8/6 stanza form, let me just pause for a moment and get started with Astrophel and Stella by Sir Philip Sidney. Astrophel and Stella is a sonnet sequence that contains 108 sonnets and 11 songs by Philip Sidney. It derives from 2 Greek words, aster and phil, and the Latin word stella, meaning star. That is, Astrophel denotes the star lover, and Stella is the star. Let's have a quick glance through the second sonnet in the sequence. Quite an interesting one of my favorites. It goes like this. Not at the first sight, nor with a drift shot, love gave the wound, which, while I breathe, will bleed. But no worth did in mine of time proceed, till by degrees it had full conquest got. I saw and liked. I liked, but loved not. I loved, but straight did not what love decreed. At length, to love's decrees, I forced agreed. Yet, with repining at so partial lot, now even that footstep of lost liberty is gone. Now, even that footstep of lost liberty is gone. And now, like slave-born Muscovite, I call it praise to suffer tyranny. I call it praise to suffer tyranny. And now employ the remnant of my wit to make myself believe that all is well. All is well. Why, with a feeling skill, I paint my hell. I paint my hell. Astrophel and Stella. So, as mentioned before, the Petrarchian form was meagerly imitated by the early sonnetiers of England, including Wyatt, Surrey and Sir Philip Sidney. But then came a man who wrote poems after poems for his to-be betrothed, which also contains the epithalamion and the prothalamion. He wrote a sonnet sequence titled Amoretti, which means little love or little Cupid. In that sonnet sequence, there is a wonderful poem titled One Day I Wrote Her Name. It is a classic example of how the Petrarchan sonnet design gets broken. Well, needless to say, the name of the poet is Spenser, Edmund Spenser. So what does Spenser do? He breaks the Petrarchan structure of 8-8-6. I forgot to mention the other title, octave and sestet. 8-6, I'm sorry, octave and sestet. He breaks this 8-6 structure into 6-6-2. That is, the octave is sidelined, sestet takes center stage. So 2 sestets and, let me hear that word. That's the word that many falsely ascribe to the bard. He did not invent it, but he had it perfectly. It was invented by Edmund Spenser. It's Spenser who invented the closing couplet. So in Spenser, the structure is 6-6-2. 2 sestets and a couplet. So allow me to read Amoretti. One day I wrote her name. One day I wrote her name upon the strand, but came the waves and washed it away. Again I wrote with a second hand, but came the tide and made my pains his prey. Vain man, said she, that dost in vain assay a mortal thing so to immortalize, for I myself shall like to this decay, and eke my name be wiped out likewise. Not so, quoth I, let baser things devise to die in dust, but you shall live by fame. My verse your virtues rare shall etonize, and in the heavens write your glorious name. Where, when as death shall all the world subdue, our love shall live, and later life renew. The closing couplet. Where, whereas death shall all the world subdue, our love shall live, and later life renew. In simple terms, Spenser is engaged in a conversation with her fiancé. He says that I'm writing your names on the strands, but then the waves come and wash it away. And the lady teases him saying, your love is taken by water. And then Spenser becomes so romantically lunatic and becomes passionate and claims that water can wash our love away, but not my lines. That would immortalize my love for you. That would immortalize and write your name in the annals of history. Amoretti. Little love, he says. My digressions, you know, right? Pardon me. Now let's come back to our beloved bard and his life as a sonnetier. It seems that William Shakespeare wrote his sonnets primarily with the purpose of only private circulation. The bard, unlike his plays, which were public or which were in the public domain, did not really want or like the sonnets to be published. But nonetheless, when it got published, the first instance that we all know being the 1609's quarto edition, we know that the structure of the sonnet in particular and also the sequencing of the sonnet broke the stereotypes prevalent up until then. When I say stereotypes, all these sonnets that we've discussed so far, beginning from Petrarch to Edmund Spenser, were all sonnet sequences, which means hundreds of love poems written for one beloved, a single lady. But within the very beginnings of the sonnet sequence, we could see that Shakespeare breaks it. By the way, how many sonnets has Shakespeare written? 154? Well, as a matter of fact, you are right, but then Willie has written 160 sonnets. The 6 that I am talking about, which does not feature in your account, appears in 3 of his plays: Romeo and Juliet, Henry V, and Love's Labour's Lost. 154 plus 6. Coming back to the construction, the first 126 poems or sonnets are addressed to one Mr. W.H., who is probably his patron, William Herbert. William Herbert was much more popular during those times as the nephew of Sir Philip Sidney, and perhaps the only legal heir to Sir Philip Sidney. They were thick friends. There are deep-lying undertones to homosexual relationship between them, not proven, but nonetheless, the first 126 sonnets are addressed to William Herbert or W.H. The remaining 28 is addressed to a dark lady. At this moment, I'd like to pause and remind you that the word dark lady does not signify to her skin complexion per se. That could either mean her eye color, as in dark or black, or it could mean the color of her hair, as in black. Mind you, the Westerners in particular have blonde hair, brunettes. Yeah? No, not the one that you're thinking, that you're used to. No, not that. But then hair as in blonde, brunette, and similarly dark hair. So probably the dark lady of the sonnets had the dark black hair. So right in the construction he deviates from the Petrarchan form. And even within this 126-28 division, you could see a triangular relationship forming or formulating. In the first 126 poems, we see that Shakespeare presents his affection towards his patron, W.H., which ranges in varied dimensions. We could see him getting possessive about W.H.'s interest or increasing interest towards another rival poet of Shakespeare. Shakespeare is like a coy lady. No, I'm not meaning misogyny, but then like a coy lady. He's like, yeah? मैं हूं ना, क्यों किसी और को आप तारीफ कर रहे हो? I am here. Can't I write good poems for you? Look at me. I am here, is what he says. When it comes to the second half, the last 28 sonnets with Dark Lady being featured, again, the love is divided. W.H. develops an infatuation towards the Dark Lady, and Shakespeare is again torn between these two. So the triangle formation continues. Again, talking about Shakespearean sonnet structure, as we have already seen the evolution, Shakespeare braves to deviate entirely from the sonnet structure formulated by Petrarch. The octave sestet format, already divided into 2 sestets and a couplet by Spenser, excited Shakespeare. So he further subdivided that structure into 3 stanzas consisting 4 lines each, concluded by a couplet, which is again called as 3 quatrains and a couplet, a concluding couplet. But with Shakespeare, the concluding couplet derives a bit more significance because those 2 lines ends with a punch, and because it ends with a punch, it started to get popular, or it started gaining currency, and hence Shakespeare's closing lines are also equally popular. Again, another point that we must note is these sonnets did not really have a title, sonnet sequences. So they are known by their sonnet number. Sonnet number 8, sonnet number 16, sonnet number 30, sonnet number 116. This is how they came to be known by. Or probably in your study materials, in your textbooks, it might have received the first line of the sonnet. Let me not to the marriage of two minds, or on a summer day. So this could probably be a way in which it was titled. But nonetheless, Shakespeare's sonnets did not bear any titles. They took the number. Sonnet 1-2, Sonnet 154. Now, let's spend some time reflecting through or reading through a few of those sonnets which are worth aesthetically listening to and enjoying. Alright then, shall we read through a few of his sonnets? Well, I'm not going to read line by line all those sonnets. I'll mention a few, I'll read a few lines from here and there, and as and when an entire reading is required, I'll attend them as well. So which one shall we begin with? Well, you may be familiar with sonnet number 18. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? How? Well, if you learned it during your bachelor's, that is your undergraduate, your UG days, you would have learned this poem as a commemoration of friendship, a toast to friendship. Conversely, if you had learned it during your master's, then the same poem, Shall I Compare Thee to a Summer's Day, would have been taught to you as a toast to homosexuality. Nonetheless, I'm not touching that. But one thing that I would like to read from 18 is a striking resemblance with sonnet number 81 as well. The same to be seen with Edmund Spenser's One Day He Wrote Her Name, the closing couplets, if you remember. Yeah? So here also the last two lines of sonnet number 18 goes like this. When in eternal lines to time thou growest, so long as men can breathe or eyes can see, so long lives this, and this gives life to thee. This what? My lines, my poetry, my sonnet for you. So long as men can breathe or eyes can see, so long lives this, and so long gives life to you. Look at sonnet number 81. 81 again is his poems, of course, concern a lot of themes like love, possessiveness, the wariness of time, depression, possessiveness, and a lot of things. So sonnet number 81 also speaks about commemorating his love. So, or I shall love your epitaph to make, or you survive when in earth and rotten. It goes on like that, and the closing couplet is like this. You still shall live, such virtue has my pen, when breathe most breathes, even in the mouths of men. Fascinating, right? Now let's go back to another interesting sonnet. Maybe sonnet number 40. Again, it's about the wariness of time, the fear of losing his lover. A full read. Take all my loves, my love, yet take them all. What hast thou then more than thou hadst before? No love, my love, that thou mayst true love call. All mine was thine before thou hadst this woe. Then, if for my love thou my love received, I cannot blame thee for my love thou used. But yet be blamed if thou the self-deceived by willful taste of what thyself refused. I do forgive thy robbery, gentle thief. Look at the oxymoron there. I do forgive for stealing my heart, sweetheart, gentle thief. Although thou steal thee all my poverty, and yet love knows it is a greater grief to bear love's wrong that hates no injury. Now look at the closing couplet. Lascivious grace, in whom all ill foe. Look how Shakespeare is alright. Moving on. Again, sonnet number 64 speaks about the rampages of time. It begins thus: when I have seen my times fell and defaced, blah blah blah, and the closing couplet. This thought is as a debt which cannot choose but weep to have that which it fears to lose. This thought is as debt which cannot choose but weep to have that which it fears to lose. മരണത്തെക്കാൾ വലിയ മരണമാണ് നഷ്ടപ്പാടിന്റെ വേർപാടിനെ കുറിച്ചുള്ള ആകുലത. Shakespeare, the sonneteer. It's not over yet. The masterpieces are coming. Sonnet 96, supporting this patron. Some say thy fault is youth, some wantonness. Some say the grace is youth and gentle spot, blah blah blah, closing couplet. But be not so, I love thee in such sort, as thou being mine is thy good wrapper. I love you. What else do you need? मैं आपसे मोहब्बत करता हूँ. आपको और क्या चाहिए? ज्ञान निन्ने प्रेमिക്കുന്നു. इधे കൂടുതൽ നിനക്ക് എന്താണ് വേണ്ടേ? ഞാൻ ഇല്ലേ നിനക്ക് വേണ്ടി. ഇട്ടിട്ട് പോടേ. Shakespeare, possessiveness, unbound love. Platonic was a trend back then. Now, very quickly, before going to recite another sonnet, a popular sonnet that you are all familiar with, I would like to add one more feature of Shakespearean sonnets. I would like to call Shakespearean sonnets monologue in poetry, or monologue in verse. Because if you take any of these sonnets, they are literally Shakespearean outcries, Shakespearean soliloquies, Shakespearean monologues. Go back and read. One more distinction to make before I go to read or recite this one last sonnet. You know, poetry consists of stanzas, not paragraphs. So it is futile to talk about sentences. Is there sentential poetry? You may say no. But then, what is a sentence marker? I would say 3. Which are they? The sentence markers? A full stop, a question mark, or the one that's there in your face right now, an exclamation mark, ആശ്ചര്യ ചിഹ്നം. ശരിയാണല്ലോ. അപ്പോൾ കവിതയ്ക്കും full stop sentence കൊടുക്കുന്നത്. Full stop, question mark, exclamation mark. Go back to these sonnets and count how many sentences are there. There are sonnets where there is only a single sentence. There are sonnets where there are 6 to 7 sentences. But this is one of the best. And again, during your bachelor's, if you had learned this poem, it would be a celebration of something. In your master's, this would again be a celebration of something else. And despite being in masters, there are people who don't recognize this poem as a celebration of homosexual love. Let's go back. You guessed it right. Sonnet number 116. What's the title? Let me not to the marriage of true minds. Let me not to the marriage of true minds. One last read and it's done. Let me not to the marriage of true minds admit impediments. Love is not love which alters when it alteration finds, or bends with the remover to remove. Oh no, it is an ever fixed mark that looks on tempest and is never shaken. It is the star to every wandering bark, whose words are known, although his height be taken. Love's not time's fool, though rosy lips and cheeks, within the bending sickle's compass come. Love alters not with his brief hours and weeks, but bears it out even to the edge of doom. ചണ്ടുവിനെ തോൽപ്പിക്കാനാവില്ല മക്കളെ. True love can never be defeated. How many sentences? 4 sentences. I'll give you one cycle of the 4 sentences. Sentence number 1. Let me not to the marriage of true minds admit impediments. Love is not love, which alters when it alteration finds, or bends with the remover to remove. Sentence number 2. Oh no, it is a never fixed mark that looks on tempest and is never shaken. It is the start to every wandering bark, whose words unknown, although his height be taken. Sentence number 3. Love's not time's fool, the rosy lips and cheeks within his bending sickle's compass calm. Love alters not with his brief hours and weeks, but bears it out even to the edge of doom. Sentence number 4, the closing couplet. Before that, what does these 3 sentences prove? Love is not this, love is not that. True love is this, true love cannot be that. Now the closing couplet. If this be error, and upon me proved, I never wit, nor no man ever loved. Imagine a courtroom drama. You are summoned in front of a judge. You are standing in that Rubakudu, whatever you call that, and you take the pledge. Satyamallave, I shall only speak truth. So let me not to the marriage of true minds admit impediments. Love is not love, dash, dash, dash. Remember, Elizabethan England was a Presbyterian England. William Shakespeare was a Catholic. Catholics had a lot of disadvantages, including public communion, public prayers. They had to pay taxes. Along with all this, homosexuality was a crime back then. We know Christopher Marlowe charged as a homosexual. Remember his play Widow of Carthage. Now come to William Shakespeare. Maybe on the widest of the fancies, imagine Shakespeare as Marlowe in disguise. Arrested and prisoned for homosexuality. Stands in the court. Says, let me not to the marriage of true minds. Your silly, stupid, monotonous true love. A girl loving a guy, courting a lady. Let me not to that marriage. Maybe he's with WH in a court. Let me not to that marriage. Love is not love when it faces problem and turns its face away. Or when it is shaken and it withers away. Or time affects, we get aged and we walk away. That's not love. That's not true love. True love knows no boundaries. Not age, not gender, nothing. Not even obstacles, not family. True love knows no boundaries, no limits. If this be proved wrong, if this be error, and upon me proved, upon me, who's popular as a playwright, 37 plays to my credit, upon me proved, I never wit. Frustrated, I never wit. Nor no man ever loved. If this be proved wrong, if you say my love is not true, look at the former sonnets, the sort of love, unconditional love that I show. If you say that's to be challenged, I've never read, what I've read is shit, I've never read. And no man should ever claim to have loved. No man ever loved. Let me not to the marriage of two minds and a pick of homosexuality. Period.